So Boris Johnson able to travel to Kiev safely earlier. What is happening on the ground in the country itself? Wilfred Frost is at the screen for us.
Before we dive into strategic factors on the ground, let's touch on the meeting between Prime Minister Johnson and President Zelensky in Kiev today. I guess it was planned but not previously announced to us all. How significant is this meeting?
Yeah, it was a little diplomatic coup, both for the Ukrainians and for Downing Street. I'm sure they didn't say anything to each other at this meeting that they haven't said on the phone many times in recent weeks, but the fact that they're saying it face-to-face is quite important. And Boris Johnson is the most significant of the diplomatic players in the West to make the journey. So he's the first of the big four: Britain, France, Germany, the United States. He's the first of those to go. He's going to Kiev when some of the embassies are coming back into Kiev. So it's all part of the process of actually showing that the West gives full diplomatic support to the Ukrainian government.
I guess the first G7 leader when you remove the EU as in terms of the membership of the G7. Let's touch on the situation in the ground as well, Michael. And I guess a meeting in Kiev wouldn't have happened if not for this past week's developments.
That's right. The Russians have gone. They're back in Belarus, back in Russia. They've left the north entirely. And what the Russians are now trying to do is to reinforce via Belgorod in Russia to bring their forces from the north right round the sort of the outside of the clock to bring them into the area of the southeast, which is the area where the offensive is going to develop and the next part of the war will be determined in the southeast.
And I guess as well, Ukrainian forces will be preparing to fight in the east.
Absolutely. They're moving down from the north. They've got an easier job. They haven't got as far to go. But remember, the Ukrainians have actually got to bring their equipment, all the stuff they're getting from the west. They've got to bring it 600 kilometres from the border with Poland to Kiev, and then another 600 kilometres down into the southeast. So both of them have got their logistical problems, and there's a sort of a logistical race going on at the moment to get their heavy equipment down into the southeast, where this new battle will develop.
Let's dive into the southeast. And what are the key things to look out for today, this weekend and the week ahead on the battle for these?
It's this conception of a closing circle. The Russians are bringing their stuff into Izium, which they've now captured, very important strategic gain for them. And they're trying to push south from Izium through Slavyansk or Kramatorsk towards Luhansk, even Donetsk, because they want to draw a line and catch the Ukrainians on the wrong side of it. It's not much of a line at the moment because their reinforcements from the north will take some time to arrive. But that clearly is what they're trying to do. And the Ukrainians will be fighting really hard to stop them closing that circle. As long as the circle isn't closed, the Ukrainians have got lots of options.
And I guess closing that particular part is one significant part of the battle for the east and for the south. But it doesn't mention Odessa, which originally would have been a big part of the aims in that broader region of the south.
Yeah, really important. I mean, Odessa is the gateway to the outside world for the Ukrainian economy, onto the Black Sea. And Odessa, of course, remains in Ukrainian hands, but it's being blockaded by the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. And the point is that the harvest, the winter grain, is now in, and so all the wheat can't actually get out to world markets. And so Ukraine is the biggest wheat supplier in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. It covers about a third of all the agrarian land in Europe. It's really important to European agriculture. And so the blockade of Odessa is not only very bad for the Ukrainian economy, it's pretty bad for world food, because that wheat can't get out of this big port, really complex port of Odessa. It can't get out to the markets in Africa and the Middle East. And so everybody is suffering because Odessa is blockaded.
Good morning. Our headlines for you at 6 o'clock. Johnson meets Zelensky in Kyiv. In a surprise visit, the Prime Minister promises armoured vehicles and new missiles in a show of solidarity with Ukraine.
The Ukrainians have shown the courage of a lion, but you, Volodymyr, have given the roar of that lion.
Let's take a look at some of the front pages of the newspapers. And as you'd expect, most of them leading on Boris Johnson's visit to Ukraine. Welcome to Kyiv, my friend, is the Sunday Express headline. It shows Mr. Johnson meeting President Zelensky.
The Observer focuses on the Prime Minister's pledge to supply Ukrainian troops with weapons and financial aid.
Sunday Telegraph has an interview with the NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg, who says the alliance is drawing up plans to deploy a permanent full-scale military force on its border to ward off future Russian aggression.
Well, of course, Ukrainian troops have been fighting on the front line against the Russian invasion for weeks now, but a growing number of international volunteers have also signed up to fight.
The UK government has warned people not to travel to the conflict, but hasn't stopped some British recruits, as Emma Vardy has been finding out.
A rallying call. This recruitment video for Ukraine's newly formed International Legion appeals for people to join the fight from all over the world.
There were times we were getting maybe 22, 23-hour raid sirens a day.
And it's clear what's happening on Ukraine's front lines is resonating with people much further afield.
It was just too much to watch, you know. It's like asking a firefighter to walk past a burning house and not do anything, you know. And most ex-veterans like myself probably feel exactly the same way, that they couldn't sit back and just watch the destruction, the attacking of the civilians and stuff like that.
AJ, a former soldier with the British Army, travelled here from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Following his previous military career, more recently he'd been appearing in dramatic war scenes as an extra on Game of Thrones, but decided he wanted to return to the battlefield for real.
Due to my military background, I felt this would be the best place for me, helping the Ukrainian troops with their weapons, training them in drill, what to do under fire and stuff like that. And I'm not like a war tourist or somebody like that. I was comfortable back home, sitting with my cat.
How have people reacted to you being there?
I've got a pretty broad Belfast accent, so when I'm out and about, people notice you, and they tend to like just come up, shake your hand, and I think they need to see things like that, you know, because they need to know the world's behind them.
The patch represents Valhalla, that's our squad name.
AJ's now been on the front lines for over a month. His is one of several battalions with international volunteers fighting alongside the Ukrainian army.
We were surprised. A number of people who wanted to come to us. There are 100 messages per day.
What do the British fighters bring to the war here?
They have combat experience or military experience. A lot of these people have been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria.
Now, I don't know if you guys know what this is behind me, but that's a Russian tank. Russian tank that would take it out.
Of course, joining a foreign war isn't something to be done lightly. And the International Legion invited us to meet some of its members who are now helping to vet the many applicants that want to join.
We turn away anyone who doesn't have combat experience, and we turn away people who don't pass our individual assessments.
Do you worry at all this could attract the wrong people with wrong motivations?
I won't lie to you, we've seen quite a lot of these, especially in the early days, and I hope that we've now been sufficiently clear in our communication that this is not Call of Duty, it's not a video game, it's a war, and we need people that know their way around a battlefield.
Ukraine's armed forces are clearly very proud that they've had so many international fighters wanting to come and join them. And what they're saying here today is that the alleged war crimes that have been taking place show that Ukraine's fight, they say, is everyone's fight. And they're calling for more people like this to come and join them. We met Sandra, who's had a pretty drastic change of scene, leaving behind her job working on fishing boats in Norway to come to Ukraine. Sandra, what made you decide to get involved?
Morally obligated. I'm European. This is home base.
As the world watches Ukraine's conflict unfold, it's becoming clear that a powerful sense of international solidarity is helping to bolster Ukraine's front lines. Emma Vardy, BBC News.